The stars had always been beautiful to Park Tai-ho. He had spent 30 years of his life sailing between them, first as a young pilot, then as a captain, and now as an admiral of Earth's finest fleet. But today, as his ship approached the massive space station called Cora Prime, those same stars felt cold and distant. Humanity had finally made contact with alien life. The message had come 6 months ago, a signal from the Valen Collective, a group of 12 alien species that ruled this part of the galaxy. They wanted to meet. They wanted to talk. Earth had celebrated for weeks. Tai-ho had not. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the station grow larger on the view screen. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth, spinning slowly in the darkness. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it like flies around a corpse. "Admiral," said a voice behind him. "We are ready." Tai-ho turned to face Ambassador Yuna. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Earth had chosen her to speak for all of humanity. She carried the hopes of 8 billion people on her shoulders, and she did not seem afraid. "Remember," Tai-ho said quietly, "we do not know what they want. Be careful," Yuna smiled. "I am always careful, Admiral." They boarded a small shuttle and flew to the station. Inside, the halls were tall and wide, built for creatures much larger than humans. Strange smells filled the air. Alien guards watched them with eyes that held no warmth. The council chamber was round and dark. 12 figures sat on high chairs, looking down at the humans like gods looking at ants. Each one was different. Some had scales, some had fur, some had skin that looked like metal. But all of them shared the same expression. Contempt. At the center sat the largest alien Tai-ho had ever seen. It was 3 meters tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were black and empty. This was the supreme commander of the Valen Collective. "Now the humans," the creature said. Its voice was deep and cold. "We have watched your species for some time. You fight among yourselves. You destroy your own world. You are primitive." Yuna stepped forward. Her voice did not shake. "We come in peace. Earth wishes to join the galactic community as equals. We have much to offer." Laughter. The sound echoed through the chamber. All 12 aliens were laughing. The Supreme Commander's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Equals." It said, "You are not our equals, little creature. You are barely more than animals. The Valen Collective does not accept equals. We accept servants." Tai-ho felt his hands close into fists. Beside him, Dr. Hannah, the young scientist who had joined them to study alien life, was recording everything on a small device hidden in her coat. "You have 2 choices," the Supreme Commander continued. "Submit to us. Serve us. Give us your world, your resources, your people, or we will take them anyway." Yuna's face was pale, but her voice remained steady. "Earth will never submit. We are a free people. We will defend ourselves." The Supreme Commander leaned forward. "Will you? Then let me show you what happens to species that resist." A screen appeared in the air. Tai-ho's blood turned to ice. It showed Earth, his Earth, blue and green and beautiful. And then it showed ships Valen warships centering the solar system. They had been hiding, waiting, all along. "No," Hannah whispered. "The first city to burn was Seoul." Tai-ho watched as a beam of white light fell from the sky and turned everything to ash. Buildings, streets, people, all gone in seconds. 6 million souls, erased, then Mumbai. Then Snow Paulo. 3 cities. 3 lights. 3 holocausts. The aliens were still laughing. 18 million of your kind, the Supreme Commander said, dead. And this was mercy. This was a gentle warning. You have 7 days to surrender. If you do not, spread its forearms wide. We will burn every city, kill every man, woman, and child. Your species will exist only in our zoos, curiosities for our children to study. Tai-ho could not move, could not breathe. On the screen, Seoul was still burning. The city where he was born. The city where his mother still lived, had lived. Yuna grabbed his arm. Admiral, we need to leave now. They walked back to their shuttle in silence. The aliens did not stop them. Why would they? Humans were no threat. Humans were insects. As their ship pulled away from Cora Prime, Hannah played back her recording. The laughter of the aliens. The burning cities. The Supreme Commander's words. "We have to show this to everyone," she said. Her voice was shaking now. Tears ran down her face. "Everyone on Earth needs to see this. They need to know." Taiho stared at the screen. At the ashes that had been his home, something was changing inside him. The fear was still there, but something else was growing beneath it. Something hot and dark and patient, as he said. "Show them everything. Let them see how these creatures laugh at our dead. Let them hear what they think of us." Yuna looked at him. "Taiho, what are you thinking?" He did not answer for a long time. The stars passed by the window, cold and silent. "They think we are animals," he finally said. "They think we will beg. They think we will break." He turned to face the two women. His eyes were dry. His voice was calm. "They are wrong." Back on the station, the Valen Supreme Commander watched the human ship disappear into the darkness. It felt satisfied. The humans would surrender. They always did. Every species did, in the end. The collective had crushed 1,000 worlds. Earth would be no different. It turned to its advisors and spoke words that would one day be carved on its tomb. 7 days, and then we finished them. 7 days, the creature had no idea what humanity could do in 7 days. It had no idea what kind of fire it had just lit. It had studied human history, the wars, the cruelty, the violence humans inflicted on each other. But it had made one terrible mistake. It had assumed that violence was human weakness. It would soon learn that violence was human nature, and when humanity turned that nature outward, toward a common enemy, the galaxy itself would tremble. The countdown had begun. The video spread across Earth like wildfire. Every screen, every phone, every device showed the same thing: Galians laughing while human cities burned. Within hours, the entire world had seen it. Within hours, the entire world had changed. Old enemies stopped fighting. Wars that had lasted generations ended in a single day. Presidents and dictators, kings and rebels, all of them watched the recording and understood the same truth. Humanity was not facing a war. Humanity was facing extinction. In Geneva, the world's leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. They argued for exactly 17 minutes. Then General Kang Minho stood up. He was 62 years old with gray hair and a face like carved stone. He had spent his entire career preparing for a war that everyone else thought was impossible, a war against something from beyond the stars. They had called him paranoid. They had called him crazy. Now they called him their only hope. "We have 7 days," Minho said. His voice was quiet, but everyone listened. 7 days to do what should take 7 years. 7 days to become something we have never been before. He pressed a button. Plans appeared on the screen. Ships, weapons, strategies, decades of secret work, hidden from the public, hidden from the aliens. "Project Blackout," he continued. "We always knew this day might come. We prepared. Not enough, but we prepared." The United Earth Defense Command was formed that night. Every nation gave its armies, its ships, its scientists. For the first time in history, humanity spoke with one voice. Meanwhile, in a small room on a military base, Lieutenant Sora sat alone. She was 28 years old, a fighter pilot, one of the best. She had been on leave when the attack happened. On leave in Seoul, visiting her mother and her younger brother. She had watched the light fall from the sky. She had felt the heat on her face. And then there was nothing. Just ash and silence and the smell of burning. They found her 3 hours later, walking through the ruins. She had not said a word since. Now she stared at the wall, seeing nothing. A door opened behind her. Admiral Taiho walked in. "Lieutenant," he said, "I need volunteers for a mission. It is dangerous. You will probably die." Sora turned to look at him. Her eyes were empty. "What kind of mission?" "We need to know more about the enemy. Their ships. Their bases. Their weaknesses. Taiho sat down across from her. Someone needs to fly into their space, alone, and come back with answers. Alone, Sora repeated. Into their space. Yes. For the first time in days, something moved in Sora's eyes. Not hope, not fear, something colder. When do I leave? On the other side of the world, Dr. Jiho worked without sleep. He was a quantum physicist, a man who had spent his life studying things that most people could not understand. Now he was building a weapon. The theory was simple. If you could tear a hole in space itself, anything caught in that hole would simply stop existing. No explosion. No debris. Just nothing. The problem was making it work. It is impossible, his assistant said on the third day. The energy requirements alone, then find more energy, Jiho replied. He had not eaten in 2 days. His hands were shaking, but his mind was clear. We have for days. For days to do the impossible, so we will do the impossible. On the 4th day, they tested the first null lance. A small rock, floating in space, vanished. No flash, no sound. Just gone. Jiho smiled for the first time in years. Build more, he said. Build as many as you can. Dr. Hannah worked on a different kind of weapon. She had studied alien psychology, alien society. Now she studied alien fear. Valen Collective is not one group, she explained to Minho. It is 12 species, forced together by the strongest one, the Toric. The others hate them. They obey because they are afraid, so we make them more afraid of us, Minho said. Exactly. We do not just need to win. We need to terrify them. We need to make them believe that fighting humanity is worse than anything the Toric could do to them. Minho nodded slowly. Psychological warfare. The oldest weapon in human history, Hannah replied. And we are very, very good at it. On the 5th day, Sora returned. Her ship was damaged, barely holding together. But she was alive. And she had information. I found their fleet positions, she reported to the War Council. Her voice was steady, almost mechanical. And I found something else. The Toric homeworld. I know where it is. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. If Earth survived the coming battle, they could strike back. They could take the war to the enemy. How did you get so close without being detected? Taiho asked. Sora's face did not change. I did not avoid detection. I let them see me. 3 ships came after me. She paused. They did not come back. Minho looked at the young pilot with new respect. How I made them chase me through an asteroid field. They were bigger and faster, but they were not desperate. Her eyes met his. I was. On the 6th day, Earth was ready. Not ready enough, never ready enough, but ready. 300 ships, 50 null lances, millions of soldiers, and 8 billion people who had decided, together, that they would rather die than kneel. Admiral Taiho stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the fleet around him. Ships from every nation. Pilots from every country. All of them knowing they might not survive the next 24 hours. Tomorrow, he said over the fleet-wide channel, they come to finish us. They think we are weak. They think we are afraid. They think we will break. He paused. Tomorrow, we show them what humanity really is. Across the fleet, men and women checked their weapons, said their prayers, and prepared to fight above Earth. The defense grid hummed with power. Below, families held each other close and waited for the dawn. The 7th day was coming, and with it, the storm. The Valen fleet arrived at dawn. 1,000 ships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. They came out of hyperspace like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars. On the bridge of the flagship, the Supreme Commander looked at Earth floating below. Such a small world. Such a weak species. This would be easy. Open a channel, it commanded. Let them see their death coming. The transmission went out to every screen on Earth. The alien's face filled the sky. Your time is up, humans. We gave you 7 days to surrender. You chose to resist. Now you will die. All of you. Every man. Every woman. Every child. Your species ends today." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a human voice replied, "You talk too much." Admiral Taiho closed the channel. He turned to his crew. "All ships, battle stations. Today, we fight for everything." The Valen did not expect resistance. They had done this 100 times before. They would surround the planet, destroy the enemy fleet, and then burn the world below. Simple, clean, boring. The first wave of human ships rose to meet them. 300 vessels against 1,000. The math was clear. This would not take long. The battle began. Energy weapons filled the space between the fleets. Human ships exploded one after another. In the first hour, Earth lost 60% of its fleet. 180 ships, gone. Thousands of lives ended. The Supreme Commander watched with satisfaction. The humans were dying exactly as expected. Their weapons were weak. Their shields were failing. Soon, it would be over. "They fight well for insects," one of its advisors said, "but they cannot win." "No," the Supreme Commander agreed. "They cannot." Then the null lances fired. Captain Huck commanded the strike ship called the Reckoning. It was small and fast, designed for one purpose: to get close enough to fire. He had watched his friends die in the first hour. He had watched the enemy laugh. Now it was his turn. "Target the lead dreadnought," he ordered. Fire. The null lance activated. A beam of pure darkness shot through space. It touched the Valen dreadnought 3 kilometers of metal and weapons. The pride of the alien fleet in the ship simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no fire. Just nothing. A hole in space where a ship used to be. The Valen fleet stopped advancing. For the first time, the Supreme Commander felt something it had not felt in 1,000 years. Fear. What was that? It demanded, "What did they do?" No one answered. Because no one knew. Across the fleet, alien soldiers watched in horror as another dreadnought vanished. Then another. Then another. All ships full attack. The Supreme Commander roared, "Destroy them now, before they can fire again." The Valen fleet charged forward. It was a mistake. Commander Yunji had been waiting for exactly this moment. She commanded the second wave, not the big ships with the null lances, but the small ones. Thousands of tiny drones, each one carrying an antimatter bomb. They'd been hiding behind the moon, silent and patient. "Execute swarm protocol," she said calmly. The drones launched. They were small and fast and impossible to shoot down. They crashed into the Valen ships like angry bees, each one exploding with the force of a nuclear weapon. One drone meant nothing. 1,000 drones meant death. The Valen formation broke apart. Ships tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. The null lances kept firing. The drones kept coming. And then the human fleet, what was left of it, charged. Lieutenant Sora flew at the front. Her ship was small and old, held together with tape and prayers. She did not care. She flew straight at the enemy, her weapons firing without stop. "This is for Sol," she whispered as she destroyed a fighter. "This is for my mother." Another explosion. "This is for my brother." Another. "This is for everyone you killed." Her ship was hit. Alarms screamed. Fire filled the cockpit. She did not stop. She aimed at a Valen cruiser and flew directly into its engine. At the last moment, she ejected. Her ship exploded inside the enemy vessel, tearing it apart from within. She floated in space, watching the battle through her helmet. Around her, humans and aliens died together. But the humans were winning. Impossible, but true. They were winning. The battle lasted 11 hours. 11 hours of fire and death and sacrifice. When it ended, not a single Valen ship remained in the solar system. Some had been destroyed. Some had retreated, but all of them were gone. Earth had won. On the surface, people came out of their shelters and looked up at the sky. They saw the flashes of distant explosions. They saw the debris falling like shooting stars, and then they saw nothing. Just stars. Clean and bright and free. Admiral Taiho sat on his damaged bridge, surrounded by wounded crew members. His ship was barely functional. His fleet was in ruins. They had lost so many, but they had won. General Minho's voice came over the communication channel. "Admiral, congratulations, you saved Earth." Taiho did not feel like celebrating. He thought about all the ships that would never come home. All the pilots who would never see their families again. The victory had cost so much. "They will send more," he said. "This is not over." "I know," Minho replied. "That is why we cannot stop. We cannot wait for them to come back. We must go to them. We must take the war to their space. Make them feel what we felt." Taiho was silent for a moment. He thought about Seoul, about the laughter of the aliens. "About 18 million dead in a single day," he finally said. "We will make them feel it." In the medical bay, they found Sora floating in a rescue pod. She was burned and broken, barely alive, but she was smiling. "Did we win?" she asked. "Yes," the medic told her. "We won." She closed her eyes. "Good. Wake me when it is time to kill more of them." The doctors looked at each other. They had seen soldiers before. They had never seen anything like this, but they would. Soon the whole galaxy would see what humanity became when it had nothing left to lose. The counterattack had just begun. 3 months after the battle for Earth, humanity launched its invasion. 300 ships rebuilt and rearmed. Carrying the anger of a wounded species into the stars, Admiral Taiho stood at the front of the fleet. Behind him came the soldiers, the pilots, the scientists, and the weapons. All of them united by a single purpose. Not survival anymore. Revenge. They called it the Black March. The first target was a Tauric military base on a moon called Varus. The Tauric did not expect an attack. No species had ever attacked them. They were the rulers. They were the gods. Others came to them with heads bowed and hands empty. The humans came with fire. Major Bora led the ground assault. She was a small woman with a quiet voice and cold eyes. Her soldiers followed her without question. They had all lost something in the first attack. Parents, children, friends. Now, they were giving that pain back to the enemy. The base fell in 6 hours. The Tauric defenders fought hard, but they had never faced anything like human soldiers. Humans who did not stop when they were wounded. Humans who kept fighting even when their weapons failed, using hands and teeth and stones. Humans who were not afraid to die. "What are you?" a wounded Tauric officer asked Bora as she stood over him. She looked down at the alien. She thought about the videos, the laughter, the burning cities. "We are what you made us," she said. And then she pulled the trigger. They did not take prisoners. They did not occupy the base. They left it burning and moved on to the next target. Dr. Hannah worked on the psychological war. She took the footage from Earth, the recording of the Supreme Commander laughing while cities burned, and broadcasted across every Valen frequency. But she added something new. Images of Tauric bases destroyed. Tauric ships vanishing into nothing. Tauric soldiers dying. The message was simple. You called us insects. Insects do not forget. Insects do not forgive. The effect was immediate. The 11 other species in the Valen Collective had always feared the Tauric. Now they feared something else more. They watched the humans tear through Tauric space like a plague. They watched, and they remembered how they had laughed, along with their masters. Ambassador, Yuna made contact with them one by one. Her offer was simple. "Stand aside," she said. "Do not help the Tauric. Do not fight us, and we will leave you alone. But if you raise a single weapon against humanity..." She let the silence hang in the air. "You know what we are capable of." One by one, the other species agreed. They pulled back their ships. They closed their borders. They watched as the Tauric Empire began to collapse. Lieutenant Sora was flying again. The doctors had told her to rest. She had ignored them. Her body was covered in scars from the battle for Earth. She did not care. She had work to do. She led a squadron of fighters deep into enemy territory, hunting Tauric command ships. She was very good at it. Too good, some thought. They watched her fly through enemy fire like she wanted to die. Maybe she did, but she always came back. And the enemy always died. How do you do it? A young pilot asked her one night. How do you keep going? Sora looked at him for a long moment. I had a family, she said. A mother who made me breakfast every morning. A brother who annoyed me every day. A small apartment in Seoul where we would sit and watch television together. Her voice did not shake. Her eyes did not water. Now I have this ship. And them, she pointed at the stars. Until there are no more of them left, I will keep going. The Black March continued for 8 months. World after world fell. The Tauric fought back, but they were fighting something they did not understand. Other species fought for territory, for resources, for power. Humans fought for something else. Something older. Something darker. General Minho called it total war. No mercy, no limits. No stopping until the enemy was not just defeated but erased from the galaxy. Dr. Jiho kept improving the null lances. Each new version was more powerful, more terrible. He no longer slept. He no longer smiled. He just worked, building weapons that could end civilizations. Does it bother you? Dr. Hannah asked him once. What we are doing? Jiho looked at her with tired eyes. They killed 18 million people in one day. They laughed while our cities burned. They called us animals. He turned back to his work. No, it does not bother me at all. Finally, the human fleet reached Tauric Prime, the homeworld of the ruling caste, the heart of the empire that had dominated the galaxy for 6,000 years. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green forests, cities that touched the clouds. 12 billion Tauric lived there, surrounded by art and music and history. Admiral Taiho looked at the planet on his view screen. For a moment, he thought about mercy, about being better than the enemy, about proving that humanity was more than just violence and revenge. Then he remembered. Seoul, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. 18 million people who would never see another sunrise. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never grow old. The Tauric Supreme Commander sent a message. We surrender. We will give you anything. Just stop. Taiho opened a channel to General Minho back on Earth. They want to surrender, he reported. What are your orders? There was a long pause. When Minho spoke, his voice was flat and cold. What surrender? Taiho closed his eyes. He thought about the man he used to be. The man who believed in peace and diplomacy and mercy. That man had died in Seoul along with everyone else. All ships, he said. Begin orbital bombardment. The first beams fell on the capital city. Millions died in seconds. The oceans began to boil. The forests began to burn. And humanity watched, silent and satisfied. As the species that had tried to destroy them was erased from existence, the Black March was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. Tauric Prime burned for 6 months. The fires could be seen from space. A world slowly dying under the weight of human anger. When it was over, nothing remained. No cities, no monuments, no Tauric. A species that had ruled the stars for 6,000 years was gone. Erased as completely as if they had never existed. The galaxy watched in silence. Admiral Taiho returned to Earth a hero. Crowds gathered to cheer for him. Politicians gave speeches about human strength and courage. Children wore shirts with his face on them. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired, old, and something else. Something he did not have a name for. At night, he dreamed of Tauric Prime. He dreamed of the fires falling. He dreamed of 12 billion lives ending because of his order. In his dreams, he could hear them screaming. He would wake up covered in sweat, and he would wonder if humanity had won the war or lost its soul. But he never said these things out loud. Neither did anyone else. The war was over. They had survived. That was all that mattered. Dr. Jiho turned his attention from weapons to defense. He built a network of null lance stations around human space's sphere, 200 light-years across. Any ship that entered without permission would simply disappear. No warning. No negotiation. Just death. They called it the Human Exclusion Zone. It was the largest fortress in the galaxy. And it was a promise. A promise that no one would ever hurt Earth again. General Minho grew old, but never retired. He spent his remaining years building Earth's defenses, training new soldiers, preparing for a war that might never come. They will try again, he told anyone who would listen. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not in 100 years. But they will try, and we must be ready. He died at 94, peacefully, in his sleep. His last words were carved into a memorial in New Seoul, the city that had been built where the old one had burned. We did not start this war, but we made sure no one would ever start another. Ambassador Yuna handled what came after. The 11 remaining species of the old Valen Collective sent ambassadors to the edge of human space. They came with gifts and apologies and promises of eternal friendship. They came because they were terrified. Yuna met them at the border station. She was older now, her hair gray and her face lined with years of hard work. But her eyes were still sharp, and her voice was still calm. "You watched them burn our cities?" she said. "You laughed with them. You did nothing while they killed our people." The alien ambassadors could not meet her gaze. They had no defense. Everything she said was true. "We will not come for you," Yuna continued. "Not today. Maybe not ever. But you will remember what you saw. You will remember what we are capable of. And you will pray that we never have reason to remember you." The ambassadors returned to their people. They told them what they had seen. They told them about Earth, a world of 8 billion humans who had gone from victims to conquerors in less than a year. A species that had turned extinction into a motivation. A race that, when pushed, did not just push back. They pushed until there was nothing left to push against. The message spread across the galaxy, and the galaxy fell silent. For 100 years, no alien transmission entered human space. No probe. No ship. No signal. The stars around Earth were quiet, empty, peaceful. Some humans thought this meant they were safe. Others knew better. Dr. Hannah spent her final years writing the history of the war. She interviewed soldiers and scientists, politicians and pilots. She collected their stories and their memories and put them in books that would be read for generations. Her most famous chapter was about Sora, the pilot, who had lost everything and turned her pain into a weapon. The woman who had become a legend sobbed, sawing slides. Even when she was too old for combat, she trained new pilots. She taught them how to fight, how to survive, how to be willing to die for something bigger than themselves. "The galaxy thinks we are monsters," she told them. "Maybe we are, but we are alive. And everyone who tried to destroy us is dead. Remember that. Remember what we are capable of, and never let anyone forget." She died in her cockpit during a training flight at the age of 78. They buried her in space, among the stars she had spent her life defending. Commander Yoonji became the first human to venture beyond the exclusion zone as an explorer, not a warrior. She took a small ship and flew into the unknown, looking for new worlds and new possibilities. What she found surprised everyone. The galaxy was not hostile. It was afraid. Species that had once conquered entire star systems now hid from humanity. They told stories about the Black March, about Tauric Prime, about the species that had answered laughter with annihilation. "They respect us," Yoonji reported back to Earth. "Some of them hate us. But all of them respect us, because they know what we can do." Slowly, carefully, humanity began to reach out again. Not as conquerors this time, but as neighbors. Trading partners, allies. The galaxy that had once tried to destroy them began to accept them, but no one ever forgot. No one ever would. In the center of New Seoul, there is a park. In that park, there is a statue. It shows a human hand reaching up toward the stars. And at the base, There is a simple message. Remember Seoul? Remember Mumbai? Remember Snow Paulo? Remember what they did to us? And remember what we did to them. Children play around the statue. They laugh and run and dream of the future. They have never known war. They have never known fear. They live in peace because their grandparents paid for that peace in blood. Above them, the stars shine bright and silent. Out there, somewhere other species look toward Earth. They see a small blue world circling an ordinary yellow sun, and they remember the lesson that world taught the galaxy. Do not start a fight with humanity, because humanity does not know how to lose. They only know how to win, and they will burn the entire universe to ash before they let themselves be destroyed. The Torek learned that lesson. The galaxy learned that lesson, and the stars remain silent. Even now, because some lessons are never forgotten,